Out with the old and in with the new. It's time to save big at Room to Room's New Year's sale. Store-wide markdowns 50 to 70% off. No tax. 48-month special financing. It's a new year at Room to Room Furniture in Tupelo. There's no place like home.
At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 6.
Well, welcome into Mississippi Live Weather at 6. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Loppon. As we get things ready behind the scenes here, kind of big show here, displaying and debuting some exclusive things, including a look at some of the damaging wind potential later on this week. Thank you so much for supporting us here again on Mississippi Live Weather. Our meteorologist Gabe Mayor will talk to here in a couple minutes as well. Again, we begin your broadcast this evening looking ahead toward those severe storm chances for Friday. Let's be clear. This is not a tornado outbreak, but there is at least a limited tornado chance related to the way this could play out. We'll have an exclusive look, something you can only see here on Mississippi Live Weather, of peak wind gusts. In particular, looking at this line as it moves into and through the area, where are we most likely to see the strongest wind gusts? Even looking toward Friday, we can get an early look at just how strong those peak wind gusts will be over this entire period. We'll have that for you coming up here in a couple of minutes. And we have an early look at the forecast on rotation. Again, one of the things our strike model is able to do is even 96 hours out, more than 3 days out, close to 4 days out, able to forecast where rotation could come from these storms. Now, that's only as good as the positioning, and that's how we will give you the analysis on this coming up here in a couple of minutes. But looking at the first 12 this evening, we're still kind of setting things up. We're 61, as you can see, at 7, 56 look toward 10, 54 by 1 o'clock in the morning, and then back probably low 50s for early morning on your Wednesday. Again, you see that shift there. That's a cold front moving into the area. One of the big question marks is how deep does that push moisture away, because that will have an impact on exactly how these storm chances play out. As you can see, really the kind of northwest 2/3 of the state of Mississippi under a level 2 out of 5 severe weather risk. Timing on this risk is for your Friday. Thinking is Friday afternoon to evening, thunderstorms could be strong to severe. So most of the locations we cover here on Mississippi Live Weather involved in this risk at this point, and could be expanded into it in future updates. But this is kind of one of the critical factors here, looking at moisture, the measure of moisture based on the same scale as the temperature, the dew point. And when you see this kind of bluish color there, that's where we have a decent amount of moisture. We look for the really, really dark kind of bluish sort of, I don't know if we want to call it, but whatever this kind of green gray color there, that's when we finally start getting into really large amounts of available fuel. That becomes much more likely as this tries to come up from the Gulf of Mexico there. But when you see kind of the purples on the map, that's where we have very significant amounts of fuel still in the Gulf of Mexico. And so when we look at this and we show a front in the area on Mississippi Live, Mama Justice Doppler radar, behind this front is dry air. I'm gonna go back one graphic and show you that here for a second. Behind the front is dry air. And so this is much, much drier. The deeper this pushes into the area, the more limited the northern part of the state is as far as severe weather chances are concerned. We expect that the whole area is going to see moisture return over the next couple of days. Come on, it's Tuesday and we're looking toward Friday here. But this will hopefully be somewhat of a limiting factor for the northern part of the state, just because it starts the process of kind of scooting everything south. Back to the north and west, we have high pressure, but we also, if you go well back to the west, have a storm system out toward California that's going to be kind of the catalyst for a lot of this active weather. You see, this is going to kind of track back toward the plains. As it does, we're going to see it kind of take this sort of a track here. So kind of track this out for a moment for you. We're going to kind of go sort of this way, right? And it's going to largely stay a little bit to our north. But still, we expect a strong wind aloft and kind of a trailing little wave. Potentially that one there we're looking at is going to kind of come along behind this and really activate our storm chances. But it's going to probably take until Friday before that happens. I think we'll have rainfall, maybe even some light sprinkles out there overnight this evening, but more likely to see that most impactful rainfall and thunderstorm chances as we go toward your Friday. Bringing it back here to the southeastern United States. And again, looking at Futurecast over this evening, we largely have the most active weather again again to the east of us, east of this front. And even then, this is only light sprinkles. For most of us, especially south of this front, we'll actually have dense fog. We've had a lot of clouds today. I think we'll have dense fog return overnight for many of the same locations that had some fog earlier today. And certainly south of this front, that's where it's most likely. But you don't see anything on our scale here that goes beyond green as we head toward tonight, right? So, I mean, moderate rainfall would be an overestimation to describe the showers that we're likely to see this evening and tonight. And so that means most of us probably aren't likely to see much. So over the next 24 hours, again, well ahead of this, 51 at 6 p.m., 55 at 9, 65 by 12 p.m. on your Wednesday, and 69 the high. Record on the books, I think, is low 70s. Some spots, they're mid 70s. Either way, those are kind of in a place where they could be in jeopardy. I think tomorrow, the northern part of the state probably doesn't see that because of this weak front, but we're much more likely to see that as we look toward your Thursday and that returning fuel from the Gulf of Mexico. Coming up here in 60 seconds, we're going to look at those threats, and in particular look at that wind swath threat. Where are we most likely to see those damaging winds? Based on what we're looking at now, we have an exclusive look at something you can only catch here on Mississippi Live Weather in 60 seconds. As Mississippi Live Weather at 6 continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/team up.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride, but there's also a significant amount of pressure.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
Watching the sun come up, that's my time. I can have a cup of coffee, and every day is a new opportunity.
That's cool.
Yay!
Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love your mind.
This portion of Mississippi Live Weather is presented by Little's Jewelers.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lobhon.
So again, yes, we are looking toward Friday. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon. Thank you so much for joining us here on Mississippi Live Weather as we have a level 2 out of 5 severe weather risk for Friday. This risk level, not necessarily talking about impacts, but number of reports, meaning, again, on a level 5 out of 5 day, we'd be more likely to see widespread, everybody gets severe weather kind of day. That is not what Friday is. It is sporadic reports of, in particular, wind damage and potentially also a couple of isolated tornadoes, I'd say a possibility. Now, I'm not going to say likelihood at this point, but we'll say a possibility. I'm waiting on a few things before we feel more confident on that potential there. But as you can see, we're keeping that spin-up tornado potential, we'll say, low on the confidence level at this point here. I think we could have a few spin-up tornadoes, but we're expecting, again, confidence has increased significantly when we start looking at the wind potential on this, especially for really central Mississippi and possibly here in the North Mississippi as well. Hail threat is limited. The flash flood threat has increased quite a bit over the last 24 hours. You'll see that in our futurecast projection here in a minute on how that could end up playing out. But let's talk about this graphic here we were mentioning a moment ago. This is peak wind gusts, and this is an exclusive graphic you'll only see here on Mississippi Live Weather. What is this? As we take this wider for a second, this is looking at basically over the entire period we show you this model, where are we seeing, or for any exact point, what is the strongest wind gust? And yeah, out there in the ocean, back out toward the mountains, already strong wind gusts, but a lot of those folks see it at this point here. The thing you'll note through Wednesday, through Thursday, it's not us. But by Friday, that's when our chances increase. Now, we'll stop the clock here at 4 p.m. on Friday. I'll bring this in a little bit closer here for a moment. As you can see by that point, our first thunderstorms have started to form. And again, when we're looking at kind of the maximum wind potential, we do have a few spots where you kind of see this sort of sort of grayish sort of color there, that's where we're up to severe wind gusts, showing it's not impossible to get a strong wind gust up to severe levels up closer to, say, Benton County up in Mississippi. Most locations were, maybe 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts. It will be a windy day on Friday. As we progress through Friday, though, that's when, as thunderstorms develop, we're more likely to see some damaging wind gusts. And you can see a very sharp cutoff here on our graphic. And this is going to match Futurecast, what we're looking at in a minute, because Futurecast is very deliberate in showing that there's kind of a line here where storms to the east are much more likely to see the severe weather potential than locations back to the north and west. Now, I'll say this. It's not impossible we see a shift back farther to the north and west if this system slows down even a little bit more. That would align where we would see more northwest Mississippi. But based on current look, based on our strike models, you can see above me here, these are the spots most likely to see some of those damaging wind gusts here in North Mississippi. Certainly we're talking Golden Triangle, Macon, Louisville, Clay County, back toward the south and east would be the most likely spots to possibly have some issues as far as that is concerned. More on that with Futurecast, looking city by city and looking at our rotation tracks and how that figures in here in a moment. Outside in Mabin this evening, good evening to y'all, as we have, again, mostly cloudy skies. Temperature is 64 degrees, and appreciate North Mississippi Storm Chasers for pairing up with us on Mississippi Live Weather to show you these cameras around the area. We're looking south on most of these. Edinburgh, another one of those pictures this evening, and one of those spots that would be more likely to see damaging wind gusts by the latter part of this week, and also a more enhanced tornado threat versus other locations. But again, the tornado threat is not high, really, in any case. But there's still a limited one. We'll look at that rotation tracks in a minute. And then 65 here in Caledonia, down there in Lowndes County. As we show up that dew point at 61, that measure of moisture, as we talked about, one of those critical factors. So with all the kind of moisture out there, that has prompted, again, dense fog advisories for locations such as Clay County, Webster County, Grenada County, LaFleur, and Sunflower counties, as well as Bolivar counties southward, all the way pretty much to the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So we do expect to obviously have some dense fog if you're driving around for tonight. So keep that in mind. Use the low beam headlights and you'll be in good shape. Day planner for your Wednesday, we're going to be about 50 in the morning, 65 degrees by noon, and about 69 degrees as we head toward the afternoon. That's pretty close to a record for this time of year, but still just a little bit below that threshold. Here's a look at Futurecast. As you'll note here, this front kind of moving in from the north and west. I'll get my mouse off the screen there for a moment. And as this kind of moves through, this kind of holds the moisture. One of the things that will be a limiting factor is how much moisture fully returns to North Mississippi. This is part of the reason, at least now on projections, showing this just strong enough that it holds or pushes that moisture south. We'll see it return, but it pushes a lot of it south as we go into the overnight hours, and most of any sprinkles largely stay that way as well. Normal this time of year, 34. I think we'll be about 51 degrees in Tupelo and Houston, 51 in Grenada, 52 in Eupora, and 54 in Louisville for beginning temperatures on your Wednesday. By Wednesday, mid-morning, again, a couple of sprinkles, not a lot of meaningful moisture coming from those for locations Golden Triangle toward the east. Noontime, again, we're dry, those clouds pesky. And if we see even a little bit of sunshine, we're a lot more likely to end up getting temperatures into the 70s for tomorrow and up that record threshold. But for a lot of us, that cloud cover really hangs on. High temperatures going about 70 Water Valley, Oxford at 68, Senatobia at 67, as well as South Haven and Tunica. About 66 in Red Bay, and obviously some mid-70s down. Kosciuszko at 73 and 72 in Louisville. You can see again the north-south aspect of that frontal boundary. So going into Wednesday evening, tomorrow night, again, lots of cloud cover, but we are still dry. You know, on that wide shot when we showed you those wind gusts a moment ago there, we were looking back toward the plains and the way kind of this storm system develops out that direction. It's going to really kind of tap into even some of the moisture we have here in Mississippi and just kind of pull that moisture back up there to the north and west as this storm system gets a lot more active into your Thursday. Still kind of setting the stage for it by early morning Thursday, but during the day, a lot more thunderstorms that direction likely, and potential maybe a few that are stronger out that way. Here's a look at Futurecast, and as you can see, we've added on a front here. That's intentional. That shows you kind of the leading edge of that moisture return, and you just as easily could continue that front back toward the south and east into our area as well. And so, again, all the way down somewhere in the neighborhood of, right about there, and then maybe curving down like that. I might be a little too far north. Why does that matter? It matters because when we're looking at this, how far north that warmer air is kind of critical to how quickly the moisture returns. Now, we're still Thursday morning. That's still more than 24 hours to get the moisture in here, and it will. As the moisture kind of lifts back in, you'll definitely notice those temperatures kind of spike back up as we progress through the day. But again, mostly just green on the map there, no precipitation, really a big impact with this as we progress throughout your Thursday, other than fairly light showers that try to get going. You can see a few thunderstorms back to the north and west, but our futurecast here, and this is important note, you saw how we had a few storms and then we didn't. That is the changeover here between our HRRR and our strike model. And it's a note to say that the HRRR model is actually stronger than the strike model. And if you watched us in the beginning, back out into kind of the summer storm season, a lot of times strike was stronger and overdoing it versus HRRR. I think the roles may end up being reversed on this. We're going to kind of learn this together as we're still adapting to the way this projection works. One thing it does do a good job of is showing, again, most of that storms do stay back to the north and west on your Thursday. So again, high temperatures on Thursday. Normal this time of year should be about 53. So we're 20 above that in Tupelo and Amory, as well as Houston. Coming in 76, though, in Greenwood as well as Belzona. That is that moist, unstable air coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and becoming more prevalent through Thursday night and into your Friday. So let's talk Thursday night here. And again, mainly just lighter variety showers if we really see anything at that point in time. And this is maybe moderate rainfall. You don't see any of the yellows, oranges, or reds, so no severe weather associated with that. Kind of widen things out just a little bit more here. We'll again show those moderate showers, isolated showers trying to develop through 3, 4 o'clock in the morning there or so. As we kind of pan it, I'll go real wide here for a second because I want to tell kind of the overall setup, and then we'll drill down to this here. A lot of moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, and then what happens with this batch we have down here from Jackson toward Baton Rouge. This is important because if this can get in, it can cut North Mississippi off, and that's a good thing. That's what we hope for. But that remains still very much a question, is whether or not those storms will get in and be able to pull that off. So as we look here, let's track this as we progress into your Friday. So Friday, your 6 a.m. there. Now we're 6:30, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. See how those thunderstorms kind of flare up? These would be what we call elevated thunderstorms. These would not be surface-based. These would not be severe thunderstorms, and these would not be storms that would produce tornadoes, at least based on what strike model is showing us right now. Now, this is a different version versus what we showed you at 5 o'clock. One of the benefits of watching both the 5 and 6 o'clock broadcasts is we do get updated versions into the evening, and so this is hot off the press. We're going to look at this at the same time. Let's analyze what we're looking at. These are individual thunderstorms, the kind that try to produce tornadoes back there into Louisiana. You can still see a lot of those individual thunderstorms down here closer to Natchez, Macomb, down toward Alexandria, Louisiana. This is where we have, I think, a slightly greater tornado threat out of this. There's more available fuel. I think there are questions as to whether or not there's enough upper level energy with this there. But again, that is my bigger concern, because when we look up here to North Mississippi, you can definitely see, again, a few individual thunderstorms, like that one closer there to Grenada, and a few closer to Tupelo at that point in time around 3 p.m. or so. But it's kind of a blob up there, kind of all eating up the moisture at the same time. By the way, I'm going to bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Mayor, here in a minute. I see someone there a second ago, Eugene, saying, thanks for not answering my question. Now, I'll be honest, I can't read your questions and give the weather at the same time. But we'll bring Gabe in here in a minute, and we will discuss that coming up after the next commercial break. So we will answer your questions. Just give us a minute to get through the forecast first. Okay, so these individual thunderstorms there, again, more likely to possibly produce some severe weather and possibly even an isolated tornado out of these in the afternoon on your Friday. But notice how they become kind of a big old line here as we head towards 6 p.m. That's that limited amount of shear for these to work off of. Still, I'd say a spin-up tornado threat, but you can see how the northwest portion of the state gets kind of cut off, because that initial batch of showers that we had earlier in the day definitely has kind of a limiting factor on how this ends up playing out for some of those spots there. So let's now progress this in here. 8 p.m. or so. Again, I'm watching that one batch there south of Louisville. This is kind of the zone here where we do have a few spots along there where we could potentially be trying to see a little rotation, try to spin something up. So when we look at rotation tracks, right on the leading edge is where we're going to kind of watch the potential. Maybe a few of those are a little bit stronger. Notice how there is kind of this cutoff here, north-south. We did discuss this during our 5 o'clock broadcast as well, but I think it remains an important factor here. Somewhere between Jackson and Starkville, there's a difference between more individual storms, more blob of rainfall. That's why the flooding threat is something we have a lot higher confidence level in at this point here, is because there is a point where this all becomes elevated and less likely to produce severe weather. So again, this is not a high-end severe weather event in the northern part of the state. All right? So as we're going 10:30 here, again, Friday evening, some of these storms, some damaging wind gusts, a possibility, but I would say the majority of North Mississippi passed the worst of it by around midnight or so on your late Friday night, early Saturday morning as this heads toward the east. I think still ongoing and still a severe weather threat, Meridian down to Hattiesburg, down toward the coast as we progress into your early morning hours of Saturday, and then things regenerate potentially into Alabama as we go into the day on Saturday as that gradually moves away. So let's talk about that forecast rotation on this, storm rotation. I'm going to stop this. Rather than put this into play, we're going to walk through this a little slower. I'm going to come in here and kind of manipulate this as we go. So give me a minute as we kind of get this up to time. So you can see those storms back out on the plains. What this does, what this looks at, is this looks at kind of the accumulated rotation that these thunderstorms are capable of. So it gives you an idea, again, back here on the plains, as this storm system really ramps up, you can see, again, some rotation, but a lot of times we get the big blobs here. We don't have the individual storms as much by themselves, but there is obviously some rotation threat with that. What you don't see for our area on Thursday is really anything like that, because as this kind of progresses eastward, as you can see, there's nothing of major concern showing up there into Thursday night, and you can see those showers early Friday, no real issues as well. So now let's dig into what it's showing for Friday morning, because immediately someone's going to say, well, hold on, you said no rotation out of this. This is where colors matter. And looking here at our color table, you know, this is a red color table. This is almost completely black on there. So what I very easily could do, and now will do because I know someone's going to bring this up, is I'm going to work on my opacity here, and we're going to make this a more reasonable opacity level. So give me a moment here to kind of knock off some of those low end colors, right? Okay, now you can kind of see some of the thunderstorms. These are what we call elevated storms, so even if they have a little rotation aloft, they will not get that down to the surface. So now, as we progress through your day Fridays, you can see those initial showers there. Not much that's overly concerning for us. As you'll note, again, we have very little rotation in everything. We're 1:30 here, because I know one of the things that even at my kids' school this morning they were asking about was, well, hold on, what's the possibility that we could be talking about, you know, some issues later this week? This is one of those signs that we don't think there's a high likelihood of that in the northern part of the state. I'm going to tweak. I think I took a little too much off our color table. I'm going to add a little bit more back in here for a moment. Just give me just a second to do that. Right there. I think that's perfect. Okay. So these are kind of those initial storms, and you'll notice through 3 p.m., there's really not a lot that I'm overly concerned on what we're looking at there. There are a couple where we do have one of those rotation tracks showing up Greenwood toward Grenada there, and we'll look a little closer at that in a minute. Another one down toward Yazoo City and back here toward Vicksburg as well. So these all kind of areas of at least broad rotation, but certainly when you look at the colors, there's more of these tracks down here in this zone from down into Louisiana. You can see you get some brighter reds down there, to even potentially up there west of Jackson. So those are the spots we're going to be the most concerned about this trying to produce some rotation and possibly trying to spin up a tornado. Now, in saying that, notice we come up here to the northern part of the state. And I'm going to, we'll leave it here. We still have one of those areas that we depict there closer to Kosciuszko, somewhere in that 4 to 7 p.m. time period. Listen, this is a little early, and we expect positioning to change a lot over the next couple of days as models get better. But this is a sign that there are at least some spots along this line where we do expect to see rotation. And if everything kind of goes the wrong way, a possibility that rotation could try to spin up a tornado. But as you'll note, there's also, if I pull off, give me a moment to delete the max reflectivity on both of those. There's definitely a cutoff on how far north that rotation is showing up. So the sweet spot south of US 82 and north of Jackson, would that be the sour spot instead of the sweet spot? Those are the spots, again, we're going to be watching the closest. Looking at this projection here, again, this is a very early look, and we're going to have a lot more of these to look at over the next couple of days. There are some spots there of interest that we'll definitely have to watch. Most of the rotation you see there is kind of stuff on top of stuff, means storms just kind of lined up on top of storms. But again, a couple of spots there, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. We're going to have to watch back there near Ackerman, south and west. Again, confidence not high, I would say, at this point here, but certainly something that we're going to watch. Let's bring you to a 7-day forecast, then we're going to take a brief break here. We're going to answer some of your questions. As we look at that 7-day forecast here for North Mississippi, again, upper 60s for highs on your Wednesday, low 70s by Thursday, mid 70s to low 70s on your Friday. Friday, the day we're going to have thunderstorms, afternoon peak time frame. Some will be damaging wind gusts. Others will rotate. Most will not produce tornadoes. Could a tornado occur? Yes. Are we thinking it's a likelihood? I think that is saying something different. I do see Rosemary in the chat saying, coming through Kosciuszko, headed toward you. It is way too early to pinpoint exact locations. Let's be crystal clear on that. But giving you an idea based on model trends right now that we do expect, again, at this point, unless things slow down, central Mississippi, and kind of the eastern half of the state, the most likely zone. But I do expect models to waver on positioning on this. We will talk to our meteorologist, Gabe Mayor, coming up here in 60 seconds. He has been dissecting the way in which these models are interacting and how they're behaving. That's as Mississippi Live Weather continues here from the Room to Room Weather Center in 60 seconds.
It's Friday night y estamos activos. Head out early. Drinks flowing to 11.
No sé qué pasó. I didn't even drink that much.
Community is the way we find our strength and share our hope. It's the way dinner on the table brings a family closer together. It's the way we make sure his first chapter book is the first step on his path to greatness. It's the way we rally in hard times and rise back up stronger than ever. United is the way we come together so everyone can thrive. Join us at unitedway.org.
Even though Gabe grew up in Alabama, Mississippi has now become his home and his family. And one thing about Gabe is he keeps his family safe.
Okay, I want to bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Mayor, here for a second as we talk about some of the different projections. Before we do that, I promised that we'd show the video of the school visit today. I'm going to go and show that, and right after that, we're going to bring in Gabe. But if we kind of bring that on the screen here for a moment. You see hear my audio in the background there as we're kind of showing, this is my kid's school actually, doing a school visit today, talking about severe weather and tornadoes in particular. Appreciate all the folks there for having us there, getting down in the classroom. We have had a few school visit requests coming in, and we'll hopefully do a few more of those coming up here in the next couple of weeks. As I bring our meteorologist, Gabe Mayor, in. You're on the weather wall over there, Gabe? Are you over
I am.
at the
I just
BAM?
wanted to bring over my notes because it's been a lot to take in on these model runs, and that's one of the things that we were talking about earlier in the show, you know, how these would be interacting with each other as we head over the next several days. If you remember, 24 hours ago, not impressed. Those models did not align whatsoever. American wanted to move a little bit quicker. European wanted to move a little bit later. One of those looked a little bit more impressive than the other. But now both of those models starting to align just a bit more. And we're going to start with our American model with what we call reflectivity. And so this reflectivity that we're showing you is the latest model run, the 18Z run for our Tuesday. We're going to carry this over the next several days. And as you can see, Friday lining up really well with what Matt was tracking on our strike model. Those prefrontal showers developing, just establishing that moisture back in North Mississippi. But if we keep this moving into the afternoon, what do we start to get right here? Well, basically this shows some elevated storm tops, meaning that we could get some thunderstorms in that forecast. But what this line right here is going to be your warm front, that lifting north right along the Tennessee state line. And where we're getting some of this open area where there's no rainfall, not eating at that energy, that's where we could get some of those stronger storms and potentially rotating storms in that forecast. But that's our warm front. That's the warm sector. How far north this reaches, that is still one of the questions we're tracking over the next several days. But back behind it, we get a secondary threat that starts to move through the area, and that is this cold front moving right across the area. This will be in the early AM hours of our Saturday. One thing of note, Matt was tracking on the strike model, just this moving through late into the evening hours of our Friday. So these models still not necessarily aligned, but we are getting better on that time frame. Let's go ahead and jump over to the European model. And again, we're going to have to drag this back out through your Wednesday. And as we jump that ahead into your Thursday forecast, still tracking some of those prefrontal showers developing in the early hours of our Friday. So there we're getting a look about noontime with a lot of those showers still going to be a little bit more south. But watch how this warm front starts to lift just a bit more north as we head over the next couple of scans. So that warm front, I know you're not exactly getting the red line across the screen, but I can tell you it's right along that Tennessee state line once again, and we're getting a lot of these prefrontal showers developing. The strike model having those showers and storms a little bit more north, but our European model extending them a little bit more south. So I would say that lessens the corridor.
Go back to 18Z, if you would. Go back to 18Z, which would be midday.
Okay.
Okay. So now that's midday Euro, right?
Yes.
Can you pull up midday GFS?
Yes. Give me 1 second. And I believe that's not just but 2 scans back. Oh, wait. Jumped a little bit too far. There we go.
So in either case, you have that area there where you have those storms somewhere golden triangle-ish back toward, right there. Then so if you go back to Euro, you'll notice the exact same spot, right?
Yes, a little bit more intense, I might add.
Okay, now give me a moment here. I'm going to bring up behind me, again, our rotation track. I want to show okay, so there, Friday, 2 a.m. This is that batch there. Again, this is less about rotation I'm showing you and more about alignment of projections, right? So this has these thunderstorms a little farther north than where that has them. And so wherever this batch of thunderstorms kind of pops up, it's kind of a limiting factor. North of that, it's going to be difficult to get the most impressive moisture. So north of that, that severe weather threat is more limited. So you can kind of see that our European projection still fairly central Mississippi, and that could cut us off where we don't really see a whole lot here in the northern part of the state. So that's the wiggling that we're still looking at the models, and that's something to keep in mind when we look at projections here. If I go back and again show that severe risk area, which I had behind me, that's the reason when we look at this, not everybody in this risk area is going to see severe weather. But at this point, it's because we're still looking at the wiggle room related to this on how far back to the north and west all those components come into place. So that's why, Gabe, again, the difference in these models make a huge impact on how this plays out.
And definitely kind of reassuring that we're already getting a time frame of where those storms will take place, a little bit more of an alignment so we're able to tell folks more in advance. And we're still talking 3 days out, and a lot is expected to change, and we do expect it to change as we move closer. One of the notes on that severe weather risk, I will say that I would not be surprised at all, and this was one of the things I was tracking behind the scenes, if there is a level 2 tornado threat that does get down here into Jackson and Monroe, Louisiana, just because that is more of a primed area where we're getting more of that unstable air, and we'll look at that in just a moment, but we're also getting some of those rotating storms, as Matt was tracking a moment ago. I think up here into North Mississippi, this is going to be that strong wind threat with 60+ mile-an-hour winds possible. Hail, not exactly a significant factor, and of course, flooding also a significant potential as we do get nearly 3 to 5 inches of rainfall in the heaviest outputs of these showers. But as I look behind the scenes, I'm going to pull up real quick a thing that we call the jet stream, and some of you guys may know that. That's our winds way high aloft in the atmosphere. And as I pull that up behind me, we're going to first look at the European model. And as you can see right here, we are tracking that out through the entire United States. So you can see Mississippi right there at the bottom right of your screen. But as we drag this out hour by hour, I'm going to tell you guys we're looking at your Wednesday first, moving more into your Thursday. And what do we start to get? Well, you notice right here that little dip in the jet stream. That is what we would call a short wave. And that's what's reestablishing that moisture here in North Mississippi. So that front, again, extending off of it. And as this continues to move a little bit north over those next couple of scans, that's where that little bit of short wave is enough to replenish our atmosphere with some of that unstable air. Well, then the main event moves in behind it, and you can see that significant trough already starting to dip in this positively oriented fashion. So that'll start to move more into North Mississippi throughout your Friday, and that's going to be the main event that we're watching. But the short wave is what establishes that unstable air back overhead in North Mississippi. And that trough, as you can see, just gradually working its way through the area, getting a little bit more defined with that jet streak right there, and then, of course, clearing out of the area as we move through the latter part of our weekend. Now, I'm going to pull this same graphic up, but this time looking at the GFS GFS. And again, if we look on the GFS, it lines up very well. And what I mean by that, it's lining up well with that shortwave starting to develop. So there you're getting a brief look at it all the way there towards New Mexico and Arizona. Watch how this gradually moves through the area. Oh, I apologize right there. Watch how this gradually works its way through the area into the southeast, and once again establishes that area of unstable air. That's going to be right overhead in North Mississippi, still with that little shortwave trying to remain overhead, but again, destabilizing our atmosphere and making for a more primed environment as that main event works its way on through. Some similarities that we're seeing is that positively oriented trough still working its way into North Mississippi, and those two systems. Again, Matt was tracking that front today. That's the first of 3 systems that's going to be working its way through North Mississippi, and the second one priming the environment, the third one giving us that main event. Now, Matt, I know that this is, it takes a perfect storm in January to produce severe weather, and I think with the upper air analysis that we do have, we're definitely looking at a better threat than just your average stormy day whenever we're talking about those severe storms possible Friday.
Absolutely. Meteorologist Gabe Mayor kind of breaking down that. And again, there's a lot of, anytime you have the strong winds loft and a reasonable amount of fuel, we're going to have a risk at this time frame out. As we're back here into the mobile room-to-room weather center, did have a question in the chat here a moment ago about, are we going to cover Columbus? Let's talk a little bit about our coverage area here for a second. Probably the easiest way to do that is just to pop up my high temperature map here. So I'm just going to drop in a high temperature map for a moment. Not necessarily to show high temperatures today, but instead to kind of emphasize the areas that we cover here on Mississippi Live Weather. So if your county is one of the counties that's colored in here, you're one of the counties that we cover here on Mississippi Live Weather, and we will be covering tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm situations in all of these counties to the fullest. Now I'll say this, we will probably continue in some cases out here into Alabama a little ways if we need to. If it's a very significant tornado, we might pick it up before it comes into Mississippi and kind of the row of counties there on the edge. And I would not at all be shocked if we do some coverage slightly farther to the south when we start looking, again, Kosciuszko, Louisville, kind of the bottom edge of our coverage area there. As I bring it back over here to, you can kind of see part of the outline related to that. Bring it back in here. I think there will be some times, especially for significant severe weather, that we do kind of cover this area here between Canton, Meridian, Kosciuszko, and the Jackson area there as well. Speaking of coverage, just so you know, we do live shows every day. Monday through Friday, our meteorologist Maggie McCauley, she is on 6:37, 7:30 a.m. on Mississippi Live Weather with the latest updates. Tomorrow morning, she'll be looking at adjustments. We do expect adjustments to this risky area. She'll have that again starting at 6:30 a.m. with updates through the morning as new updates come in with our forecast models, projecting out again where the worst of this could end up playing out. Our next live broadcast is going to come up tonight at 10 p.m. Gabe will have an updated look at that strike model. What we will be looking for in that projection is how the individual storms in particular, where those are looking at and the likelihood that some of those could produce the wind damage and everything related to that. He will have that here in the Room to Room Weather Center coming up during our 10 p.m. broadcast. And before we go, it's a thing that we mention all the time, but that we need to mention because it is kind of your personal tornado warning. And when we talk about severe weather, there's only 2 things that you can do. Otherwise, we just kind of have to live with whatever God throws our way, whatever the earth throws our way when it comes to severe weather. But the 2 things that you and I can do, well, 3, you can pray, but, and I should not blow it off like that. Prayer is an important part, but prayer alone isn't going to be what we have to do. We have to make sure that we know where to shelter and use the brain that God gave us to know where to shelter and know when to shelter, right? So when to shelter, that's where weather call comes in. It lets you know if you're in a tornado warning. It calls you back if a tornado is confirmed to be moving toward your area, calls you for severe storms, for major flash flooding as well. There's a cost that's involved with weather call. We wish we could give it away for free. That's a cost that we passed on from the vendor. I just believe that making phone calls makes a difference because during this broadcast, I've had, God only knows how many alerts come through my phone, but I've had 0 phone calls. When phone calls come in, they interrupt what we do. And so they're still the disruptor. So phone calls matter for that reason, because it's like, hey, something's really happening. So that's why we recommend Weather Call. It is a safety thing. It is $15 a year, and it is worth every penny. We also would encourage you, if you have not already done it, to download the Mississippi Live Weather app. It is free and available for all of those different devices there. You can get the very latest there by scanning the QR code, either just snapping a screenshot on your screen. I'm going to put that back up here. Snap a screenshot of your screen right now, and this is, again, how you can stay connected with us. We do our live broadcast 5, 6, and 10 every day, and then obviously in the morning. But make sure you have the app so you can know where to shelter when the time comes as far as severe weather is concerned. Updates from Gabe at 10 o'clock. Looking here real quick. Someone was asking about their weather call, and asking about how it works versus the old version. I'll say this: there's a few additional text message sort of alerts and things with the current weather call that I would recommend there. Certainly, we would love if you would support us. If you do support Weather Call through Mississippi Live Weather, it does make a difference. So. Not saying cancel and move, but I am saying that certainly when it comes time for renewal, we'd recommend that you come to us if that's something that you so desire. Certainly it is a phone alert that can save lives, and there's a reason you've never seen me call my wife on TV. It's because I know that I'm calling my wife through Weather Call. She has Weather Call, and it alerts her, alerts our sitter, alerts my parents back in Kansas, and my family in Oklahoma. It's a lifesaver, and it's worth every penny. So anyway, that's the reason I'm a big believer in Weather Call. Okay, with that in mind, looking back in here, someone asks in Marshall County, Prentiss County. Oh, we got to talk basketball. We will do our Mississippi Live Game of the Week coming up at 10 o'clock. Gabe, pull up that poll if you could, and I'll come back to you for that here in just a moment. But someone was asking Marshall County, Prentiss County. Again, this is the risk area. If you're in this yellow risk area, I would say there remains at least a threat for severe weather on Friday. Clearly, the projections we were looking at have most of it Natchez Trace southeastward. But things have slowed down over the last 24 hours on some of our projections. That could, again, pull it more in alignment with this yellow zone. So that's why we want to check back in. This is Tuesday. We expect positioning to change over the next few days here. I'm going to bring our meteorologist, Gabe Mayor, back in here for a moment. Again, back in the studio, voting pretty clear at this point on where we're going for our Thursday night Hoops Game of the Week. It looks like Biggersville boys and Corinth. Is that what we're looking at there, Gabe?
Alcorn County represent. I think we're heading up north as of right now. 49% still with Corinth versus Biggersville. Of course, a valiant effort from Ingomar versus New Albany. And then as you see, Alcorn Central versus Biggersville, 12%. East Union versus Myrtle Boys, 9%. And West Union versus Myrtle Girls are right there at 1%. So one of the things heading throughout this winter, spring time of year, it's going to be basketball season, and something I'm excited about, Matt's excited about, and just excited to get out there on the court, the hardwood with you guys, and to be able to get some highlights, be able to also talk forecast. And of course, this week it's going to be on Thursday due to the severe weather threat, but then Fridays will be our day moving forward, weather permitting.
And we appreciate the folks at Casey Law for sponsoring our Game of the Week, making sure that it's something that we're able to do. I'm going to bring that up next to me again here for a second. And I do want to mention, you might notice something different here from football season. We have girls and boys, both a possibility here. This first week, because it's tournament week, we kind of combine girls and boys into this. And then we're going to start alternating for here. So next week, all of our options are going to be girls games, then boys games, then girls games, because as we put out on our teasing video, it's time for the girls to get their shot there, and there's so many female athletes that are just incredible around our region, and we're looking forward to be able to kind of showcase them with highlights. We're also going to do cheer squads, as well as either pep bands or student sections at these games. So excited for that, looking forward to that, and hope to see you out in the field, and hope to get y'all voting. This isn't finalized until later on tonight. So Ingomar, I know the Ingomar girls basketball huge tradition there. Many other of these other, schools have incredible tradition as well. So excited to hopefully be able to make it to some of these storied arenas around the area to go ahead and check out some of these games over the course of the next few weeks. Okay, one more time. Again, our next broadcast is going to be 10 o'clock. Gabe's going to be looking again at the potential for those damaging wind gusts, that exclusive wind swath graphic, something you'll only see here on Mississippi Live Weather. He'll have an updated look at where that is peaking its potential, as well as your complete forecast coming up at 10 p.m. He'll probably handle everything tonight here in the Room to Room Weather Center. Tomorrow night, it'll probably end up being kind of a combination as we get a little bit closer. We will see you at 10 o'clock. Thank you for supporting us here on Mississippi Live Weather.
Can I ask a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
Do you have any pets?
Yes, we have a dog, but she's little.
Do you have any unlocked guns around the house?
We do have a gun, but it's stored securely, locked in a safe that the kids can't access. Appreciate you asking.
Yeah, of course.
I felt accomplished after I got my diploma. Made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.